Hello and welcome back to ParanormalNL Podcast in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Nosworthy. Thanks again for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM Gulf Coast. Now, tonight, I've got a special paranormal guest from Texas waiting backstage who I'll bring on shortly for tonight's UPRN segment number 20. PNL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team, a boots-on-ground BOG team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. If you'd like to be a guest on my show or have a historical or heritage building you'd like investigated in Newfoundland, contact paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com, and you can follow a PNL Podcast and the BOG team on their Linktree Paranormal NL Podcast. Now let's get on with the show. Tonight I have on with me all the way from Texas, we've got Michael Kopf. Welcome.
Thank you for having me back on.
Yes, I say welcome back to the folks on UPRN who are listening. He was on PNL Podcast in season 2, episode 53. And that was that when I was doing video or just radio? I think it might have been just radio. I can't remember.
It was radio.
Yeah, I think it was just radio then. But welcome back, Michael. Now you're with the energy that surrounds us, riding through the unknown and paranormal verses. You've got a lot of podcasts. Tell us more about them.
I am, and I do. And so the energy that surrounds us is my paranormal podcast where I delve into the unexplained and go and look and see what's guests I can bring in to help, promote what they do, and also to share ideas and share awareness to topics that I think people just may not be aware are classified as paranormal, because to me, I go by the definition of paranormal being anything that is unexplained. So it's
I agree. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I try not to limit it to paranormal investigations or equipment or teams. I branch out and try and do a variety of topics. And then
I think about the metaphysical when I see a lot of your different logos and stuff like that. And I know you're also a Reiki Master, correct?
I am.
Yeah. So you've got and you're a paranormal investigator, you're a speaker, a vlogger. You've got a lot of stuff on your plate.
I know. I wonder how I get it all done sometimes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there mustn't be much stuff left at the end of your day when you hit the pillow, or do you ever hit the pillow?
I hit the pillow, but yeah, I find myself watching like Doctor Who or other shows to kind of rest my mind and fall asleep.
Right. A lot of us podcaster folks are like, yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep, and then you go to bed and you're like, all these things go racing through your mind, right? But
right.
Tell us more about you and some of your podcasts, and maybe even some of your guests who you've had on, or some of your experiences.
Sure. Riding Through the Unknown is my esoteric series, and for your listeners who may not be familiar with the term, esoteric means hidden history or just hidden from, the world and everything. And so it's topics that kind of fall under the category of conspiracy theory sometimes, or it's just a piece of history that may be mentioned one time and then kind of gets buried under other things. And it's like, wait, that was a really important thing. So I try to find guests and bring awareness back to those topics and
Yeah, it's kind of
Some
hard to do a podcast sometimes without getting into some of those things, right? The conspiracy theories and but I love the ancient stuff too, and the esoteric also, and the unknown, you know?
right, and I mean it's so interesting when it's like we look at something and take for example, here in America we have a delivery service called FedEx. And a lot of people don't realize in the logo FedEx is an arrow pointing to the right. And that is an example of what I mean by esoteric is it's right there in front of us, just we're not aware of it. And so my goal with that show is to not only bring awareness to it, but maybe shine a light on it so much so that people want to research it on their own, or like a seed is planted and they go and they grab information, and if they prove me wrong, hey, more power to you. I encourage that because I like discussion. And
I like the folklore stuff too. I'm looking here at your ship. I've got a ship on my logo too, and a lot of it is, well, we're a seafaring province over here in Newfoundland. That's one of our major industries was fishing back in the day on the tall vessels. But I'm sure in with every culture there's folklore about stuff like that. We've got a lot of pirate folklore here.
actually, with that being my logo, a friend, I had him create that for me. And what it was is when I first started, I was looking at the mysterious side of the paranormal, and I was like, ghost ships and pirate ships, were kind of in the forefront. And I was like talking with him and going, I'd like a logo that, has everything that I'm researching into it, because that kind of sums me up. And when he came back, he showed me this logo, and I was like, oh, I was so hooked.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Anything with a tall ship is always fun. And it looks like you might even have a ghost on board by the looks of it.
I think there actually is two ghosts.
I see one stood up there. Yeah. I like to hide stuff in my logos too. Like when you do your logos, do you hide stuff in them for people to find, like little Easter eggs?
Actually, my show logos, my cousin does, and he creates them in a way where I give him an idea and
Right?
he brings them to life. And it's really amazing how he's able to do this because he's not actually in the paranormal field. And so he does my intros, my outros, and
It's always nice to have somebody else create stuff for you too. Give them a vision and let them kind of use their creative magic and see what happens, right?
it is. And
Yeah. We always like to hide a puffin in our logos because Newfoundland and Labrador's main bird is our little puffin.
yeah, um, the one that I think has the most hidden is the writing through the unknown.
There's our little puff.
And that logo, one of them,
This one.
uh, that one is it's the other one that has the kind of hidden aspect to it more so is, this one has it on the Stargate, which is
Oh, I
kind
love that.
of,
Stargate. That's one of my favorite movies.
oh yeah. I liked this one because it shows going on adventure beyond, and I loved how he has one image in the forefront and then another image in the gate, and he's just casually walking in, and I'm like, that was so perfect to me because that is how I feel, like I'm just casually walking into a new world.
It's like every podcast you go into, you don't know what you're going to expect. You just stick your head in and woohoo, let's go, you know? I mean, do you believe there's portals around the world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually got stuck in one.
Tell us about that.
So I was in a jail that's been abandoned in Texas, and I was walking along, and the whole night I could sense something was off, but I couldn't pinpoint it down. Like I felt like I was being watched and everything, and all my senses were on high alert. And normally, when I find portals that are like naturally created, I can walk around them and be like, yeah, it's right here. And I was on a location and and somebody challenged me and I actually got it right where it was. And I was walking through the cells, and next thing I know, I'm being tapped on the shoulder by someone, and I fell to the metal ground, hit my head, came
Ouch.
to, and was like, what's going on? Why am I down here? And they said, you were not responsive. You were not responding. And I was
Oh
like,
my
what are you
God.
talking about? They
How
were like,
long were you out, Michael?
probably like 30 seconds to maybe a minute or two. Not very long, because they were trying, to get my attention right away. So it was fortunate I was with the team, but
Mhm.
then we went outside and I got some water in me and felt better and went back in, and I couldn't sense it.
Well,
And
hello, you've got a friend with us. Who's that?
those are my two little guys that my mom's little fur babies.
Oh, yeah, we always like to have fur babies on the show. Pick one up.
Oh, they just ran outside chasing a squirrel.
Oh, a squirrel. Yeah, I just squirreled on you there. Now, when you fell on the floor, thank God you weren't alone. So you went outside, you got some water. Did anybody tell you, or did you tell them about what you experienced while you were gone, per se?
No, it's, I just know I was unresponsive, and they just like kind of tapped me really hard, and I just fell. It was like I wasn't there. And so I was snapped back, and I don't know where I went, but when I was talking with a friend in Colorado, Alex, he was explaining to me what happened, and he says that's what happens when you go into a portal is you will get drained of your energy, you won't be responsive, and yeah, it's really important you get someone pulls you out right away. And so he then, what I have now because of that is, I don't know if you can see this, but let me see. I got what's known as a quince seed. It's a
Oh,
sacred seed in resin.
okay. Where did you
And
get that?
uh, I got it through a friend, and she gets them from nuns in Italy that
Right?
grow the seeds and then place them in resin. And the story behind the quince seed is it's supposed to generate a 3-foot field. So
Okay.
whatever is in you at the time when you put it on
For some protection.
stays in. It can't get
Right?
out.
Yeah.
So whatever's trying to get in can't get in. It's like a barrier both ways. So
It's all about intention, right? Everybody
it
got
is
their own things that they do for bubbles. So that's what you use for your bubble.
one of the things, yes.
What else do you use for your bubbles?
I use sage spray. I use
The spray.
Palo Santo.
Oh, I love that stuff. Love the way
I,
that stuff smells.
yeah. I also use organite,
Yeah.
and I can't think of it right now. My mind just went blank. It's a meteorite that was found in Russia.
Organ.
It's black, and
Wow.
It's has a really high protective,
Something like an obsidian kind of thing?
sort of, and it's not, it's extraterrestrial based, and so you can grind it up into powder. Man,
Okay.
I can't believe my mind is going blank. I have it in necklaces.
Yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff you can get, isn't it?
There is. I may have to message you what it is when I figure it out in my brain.
Oh, you can put it in the comments later when the show comes out. You can add it in the comments, or if anybody watching, what do you use? You can write it in the comments there too. What do you guys use at home?
Yeah, and and switching back to the podcast shows, Paranormal Versus is the third show that I'm a part of,
Sage for you.
and
Paranormal Versus.
that one is kind of got a funny story to it. Is Kel Ridley, who is the creator of the show, was on another podcast show, and everybody was sitting there saying, "We can't understand you. We're having a hard time," because she's from the Geordie area of the UK.
Oh.
And I could understand her, and I'd be asking questions or answering for her in the chat on her show. And when she went to break out and do her own show, she was asking around some people, and I was talking with her about something, and she said, and happened to mention, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a show?" And I was like, "Yeah, what would we do?" And she's like, "Well, I'm looking at one that would be comparing the UK and you being in the US, so it'd be USA versus UK." And I was like, "That sounds like fun." And so we were talking on screen, and I was able to understand her the whole time. And so we laughed that that's what actually got me the job, was because I could understand her. We
You're
had a
lucky
couple of
I'm not from what they call here out around the bay, because that's very Irish accent, and a lot of people don't understand it. But yeah, I've got a bit of a weird accent. It's half Tex-Mex and half Newfoundlandese. So
I can understand it, but
you're doing a good job understanding me.
and we had the funniest instance of, in our first season, we had a couple of guests where she would be asking the guest a question, and they would say, "I'm sorry, can you repeat that?" And I would jump in and say, "She's asking this," and they're like, "Oh," and
You're
then
translating.
so I was like, I'm the co-host / translator for the show.
I love it.
But we have a lot of fun on there, and we get into more of the paranormal and conspiracy theories on that show. And I actually, now, I haven't added it to my bio, and I probably should, I actually, in November of last year, was asked by a guest that was on Writing Through the Unknown if I wanted to co-host a political conspiracy theory show, and it's called The B System, and Emily Menshouse is the host.
Okay.
So on Thursday nights, that's my fourth show, and
oh my gosh, Michael!
I just guessed
we're gonna have to add another logo.
Well, I don't have a logo for that one, because that one I just go on when time allows, and she's running it. She runs that one.
Okay.
The three that I gave you logos on are ones that I run or have like equal stake in, and so those are the ones. The three that you have are the ones that I consider my little
So,
show
so
babies.
Michael, let's switch gears here. I know you're a paranormal investigator. Do you have anything in your mind that sticks out from some of your experiences that you had that kind of shook you up, or or just you want to share about?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was sitting down recently and noticing I share experiences a lot, but I never share the impact that these experiences had on me. And so I've been going back now and re-looking at experiences and then saying, here's the impact too, because I've started to feel like that is something that I feel like is missing on some paranormal shows.
Yeah,
And
a lot of teams and groups go out there, but before they go home, sometimes they don't debrief right there on the spot. They do it later, or some groups or teams don't debrief at all. And I think, from a mental health standpoint, not only with the evidence, but I think that helps people to talk about it, what happened.
I agree. And I feel like when we share experiences and don't share the impact, now that I think about it, people go out and think, oh, we just do this, we just do that. And they don't understand why nothing affects us. And it's like, it does. We just, for some reason, decided that part's not exciting, I guess, to share. So it kind of gets left off. And I'm like, in my opinion, that's what I feel. And so I'm like taking a moment and going, when I share experiences now, I'm going to share the impact too, because I feel like it's equally important. So I'm glad you asked that. Now, enough
Yeah.
of that, podcast hosting and go back into guest mode. And so the experience that I would say sticks in my mind would be, it's actually a 4-part experience.
Okay.
And the first part was I was volunteering at a performing arts center where I live, and I had missed some steps and broke my leg and didn't realize I had broken my leg.
How?
And I tried to walk on it 4 times. I thought I
Oh,
had just pulled a muscle.
oh gosh, you poor thing.
And I was white as a ghost and forced to go to the hospital in a paramedic not ER, ambulance. And I say forced because I thought I could just sit in the back seat and drive over there. I didn't think it was broken. So I was under the impression, it's just a bruise. No big deal. And then found out, nope, it was broken. So that kind of rocked my world because I was like, never broken anything that serious and that badly before. And so I had 2 metal plates put in my leg with several screws to hold them in place.
I've done lots of those surgeries.
Yeah. And
Yeah, they're no fun for the patient, but this
no,
this happened on investigation. Did something push you, or did you fall down, or?
no, actually this is the bit that leads to the experiences. That's
Okay.
the
Okay,
background
because you said
story.
it's 4
So
parts. Yeah.
yeah, that's the introductory part. Now the
Oh,
paranormal part is actually 3 parts.
okay.
And this is where it gets interesting. So I'm going on through, after the surgery, recovery, going through the PT, and in my mind, I'm supposed to be going on a vacation in a few months after this break happened. And I'm like, and it happens to be a round trip cruise to Hawaii. So I'm like, no way I'm missing this opportunity.
Right. Nobody wants to miss going to Hawaii.
So I'm like begging the doc to get me into PT as fast as possible, figuring my mind is like, I've walked for 40 years now. It's, second nature will just kick in. No big deal. I haven't been, not walking that long. Well, the first day of PT arrives and that got shattered. I was like, there was no way I was going to be walking anytime soon. And I was like, kept talking to the head PT guy and saying, I need to go in December on this trip. And it was like late October, early November when I got to start PT. So I was like, time crunch overload. And I'm like, why can't my leg work? My mind, I'm telling him in my mind, we can do this. I'm going into motions to do it, but the leg is not accepting. And so it was
Rehab
frustrating.
takes a while. I know a lot of patients get frustrated with that.
And so I finally gave in and started just doing the PT day by day. And it started getting to where I could do more and more on my leg, and it was starting to accept. And so I was like, okay, had to take the pressure off. And about 2 weeks before I was supposed to be finished, they looked at me and they go, so we want to know, what is our end goal? Do you want to be able to run again, or do you just want to walk? What is your thing? And I laughed and I go, well, when you look at me, I'm not much of a runner, so I'm okay if I don't get the running skill back. Now, walking, yes, that is important. And so we turned focus then on just getting my leg to walk. So a week before the cruise was slated to happen, PT ends and I get cleared to go. I'm like so excited. So we get to the airport, and you would think being on crutches, you would get like priority help and service at the airport. Yeah, not so much.
No, that's not good.
I went in line and had to wait some, and I got to go through. And here's where the paranormal bit starts. And to me, it's paranormal because I can't explain why this happens. But when I had the metal in my leg, either who was in front of me or who was behind me when I would go into the metal detector would show metal in their leg. I never did, even though I had the metal in my leg.
Okay.
And I always thought that was weird because I would hop in, they would take the crutches from me, and then they'd hand them back after taking the image. And, I guess they're looking at me like, why are you on crutches? But somebody else would be flagged for having metal in their leg. And I was like, that was just bizarre. And so we end up being late to the cruise departure because our flight was delayed. So we get on this ship because they had to wait because we were booked our flights through them. Mental note there for anyone who wants to cruise: book your flight to board and disembark and your excursions through the ship, because then they're forced to wait for you.
That's important if you're a paranormal explorer and you want to go out doing paranormal tourism.
That's important if you just want to be a tourist, but yes.
I like to keep it paranormal.
Well, you're not going to get disappointed as this story is about to unfold. So you can imagine being on a cruise ship. I'm using my crutches to get around. Well, I get to Maui and I'm supposed to do snuba, which is half scuba, where you're got a mouthpiece, and half snorkel, where you're wearing a mask over your eyes. And I'm sitting on the boat, and I left my crutches on the ship, and I was able to hop there, and I was like limping, thinking, okay, all is good. This will be nice. Get in the water, relax. As we're about to start, the leader of the excursion says their spiel, and they say one sentence that makes my heart sink.
Uh-oh.
If you have had any surgeries within the past 6 months to a year, you cannot do the excursion. Well, somebody all of a sudden appears next to me and says, "Stick with me. I got you covered." And I was like, okay. So I put my little fins on and get in the water, and we go to the bottom of the bay in Maui, and I can feel the sand sifting in my fingers, and my mind goes to, I wonder how many centuries or years it's been since this sand seen the light of day and somebody stepped on it or was playing here.
Right.
So it's like I was feeling really connected to the land and everything all of a sudden. And we get back up onto the ship, and I thank the person that I was helping me to be able to do this. And he was like, "It's okay, don't worry about it." And we get to shore, and I go to thank him again, can't find him. So I finally go, okay, we've got to leave. So get on the excursion van back to the ship, and all of a sudden we pull in, and I get scanned on the ship, and I get to the room, and my parents are like freaking out, going, "You got to call security. Security's looking for you." I'm like, "I haven't been on the ship. Why?
They're looking for you."
For me. So I call up security, and they're like, "Well, we've been needing to leave, but you were missing. So you're on board the ship." I'm like, "Yes, I'm in my cabin." Okay. Then they sound departure, and we leave.
Right.
We go to dinner, and my parents stop and look at me and go, "Where's your crutches?" And I realized I had left them in the room. But here's the interesting thing. I had no limp. My limp had disappeared. Something in the Bay of Maui reset my leg to pre-surgery, pre-accident, to where I was walking totally fine and was like, wow. And so I'm like all excited because now I'm feeling like I'm back whole again, and I'm not.
Right, yeah. You're like the bionic man now.
Yeah. And so I then go and have surgery to have the metal taken out.
Right.
Because I couldn't do my job because the metal would start to hurt my leg. And they were like, "Well, we don't need the metal in there. Let's just take it out." So I was like, cool. I go on a trip to Spain, and my orthopedic said when he took the metal out, "Everything is great. Your bones healed up perfectly. Your nerve, that's going to always be an issue. The one nerve we had to cut, but just do me a solid. Don't fall on this leg because you could risk, damaging it." And I was like, okay. I get into a terminal in Spain, and my foot hits a metal slat and goes right to the ground. And I am in panic mode because I just not only fell, but I fell on the leg I wasn't supposed to. So my mind is in full fear mode of, oh my God, I'm in Spain. I'm on a cruise ship.
Like, this
I
is gonna
didn't
be
even
a mess.
go
I'm
in.
gonna be in a hospital in Spain.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm
Yeah.
like, this is not good. So my parents help me up and we go back on the ship and we miss that port. And I'm sitting or I'm laying down on the couch in the room and we had the door open to the balcony so I can hear the water. Well, this is where the paranormal comes in again. This voice comes out of nowhere and
Hmm.
is very loud, like a booming voice. And it goes, "Who are you?"
Okay.
And I'm like, I answer back, "I'm Michael." And he goes, "Who are you?" And another booming sound. I'm like, "I'm Michael. How many times are we going to cover this?" And the booming voice comes again and says, "Who are you?" And it dawns on me, they're not asking my name. They're asking, "Who am I?" Not my name. And so I go, "Oh, I'm a Reiki healer. I can use elements, I can heal things." And then the voice, all of a suddenly, still booming, changes, but it says, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Again, "Where are you?" And I go, "I'm on the ocean. I'm, you know,
Right? Yeah.
on a ship." And then it says, "What is your element?" And I go, "Water." Oh, and my brain clicks in and like the fear subsides and I'm like, I'm on freaking water. Oh my gosh. And so I start to pull in all the energy from the ocean, surround my body, surround my leg, and my mom comes back from getting an ice pack and says, "Here, let's ice your leg down." And I was like, "I don't need it. I totally have healed my leg. It's all good. We're okay." And I
You
was fine.
use the water, right?
Right. I had
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I was locked in fear mode, so I forgot what I can do. And so that that's an important impact that I
Well,
add to this story.
water is an important paranormal thing. I mean, it, I truly believe a lot of people say this that, the paranormal ramps up around water. Well, because it's energy in itself.
Right.
It's a living thing. There's, put it under a microscope. What's in it? There's stuff in it, right? But it does other really weird stuff. It memorizes and has a memory, like when you freeze it or things like that. Have you seen that?
I have all the ice crystals that it does under sound and
Yes.
other frequencies.
It's very mysterious. And we're made up of what, 75% water?
Yeah.
So that's what we are, right? Water and a bunch of other stuff. So it's interesting that yeah, so water is yours, hey?
Yeah, I'm a water sign and so I'm able to use water to heal. And so we go through and finish that transatlantic cruise and that on a side note, that cruise ironically puts us arriving in the Atlantic Ocean on the tail end of Hurricane Sandy. So I
Oh,
got to be
wow.
on a ship through not only the Bermuda Triangle, but through Hurricane Sandy as well, the tail end
Wow.
of it. So that
Wow.
was an adventure.
So, yeah, you've had that was an interesting trip, that's for sure. And I
Yeah,
know, a lot of people, they wouldn't wanna give up that trip either. I'm looking, I've got your website pulled up here. You've got a lot of different articles and things that you've written too.
I
Um,
do. And before we get into that, I wanted to share the last part of the experience was the following year. I was in southern France, going through the Cathar region, which, if anyone's not familiar, that's the area where like the Knights Templar were, and a lot of that mystery, and Mary Magdalene being there. Well, I climbed up to go to Mount Montsegur, the castle there, the ruins, and on the way down, I slip and fall again on that leg.
Michael, oh no.
This time, my friends that were there both came almost rushing up to me and were like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, I literally felt like this going, "It's okay." I was like, "No worries. I'm all right."
You're like, let me just go jump in the water. I'll be fine.
I was like, I had no fear of hurting my leg at all. I was like, total different reaction, and just got up and just walked away. And another interesting aspect of what happened in France, I think I had time to share this, was we were staying in a cabin at the foot of Rennes-le-Chateau, which everybody knows is a sacred hotspot for a lot of mythos and a lot of conspiracy theories. Well, we started going up, my roommate and I, one night, and as we were going up, there's this rustling in the bushes along the side of Rennes-le-Chateau, the hill up to it. And we get to the entrance, and I stop. And I say to my friend, "We got to turn back." And he's like, "It's right here. I can literally touch the stone." I was like, we can't. We got to go back because this just isn't right. I got a bad feeling. So he trusted my feeling, and we went back. The next night or the following night, we go, and we're going up the hill, and there's no sound. And so I'm like in my mind going, all right, so the guardians of the city are okay with us being here tonight. Don't know why we couldn't go in the last time, but this time we're okay. And I look over to a sacred mountain in the background. And if you're familiar with the 13th Warrior movie, that fire worm.
Okay.
We literally see one start going down the mountain towards us.
Well,
And the strange thing is, it's going straight through trees. It's not starting any fires. And I'm like, how is it walking through the trees, not catching anything on fire, but it literally looks like a line of fire.
And your friend is there, and your friend is seeing this?
Yeah, we're both seeing it, and I looked at him, and I was like, I don't want to meet up with that, do you? And he's like, no. So we hurry up to the city, and we get to halfway up again, and we notice it's still coming, moving somewhat slowly, but it's making progress. And we get to the edge of the city where there's the big stone that says Rennes-le-Chateau. And again, don't hear any rustling. So I'm like, okay, we're okay to enter. We take photos at the entrance of Rennes-le-Chateau. And we walk in, and so the Tour Magdala is to our right, and we go to the left and are looking out, and every mountain surrounding has this huge white glow behind it.
Okay.
And I'm like, is that a city or what is that? And we turn and we look next to the tour, behind the Tour Magdala, and we're like, well, there's a city down there, and they're using soft yellow light, and there's not much of a glow to it. And we look back, and I'm like, that's got to be a base or something sacred that's lighting that up. That is not normal. And we turn to walk behind the Tour Magdala, and as if, all of this going on isn't paranormal enough, just wait. My roommate hears a sound and I didn't hear it. And so he goes, I'm going to go check it out. I'm like, cool, go for it. I take 3 steps, look up, and a lady in white is floating across the path in front of me and appears to look at me but not acknowledge me and enters the tour Magdala. Just as she disappears, I hear a voice over my shoulder, and it's my roommate, and he's like, it was nothing. There was nothing there. I was like, huh. I go, did you just see that? He goes, see what? And I was like, never mind. My mind's thinking, I made this up. No big deal. So we start walking, and we notice at the end of the path are 2 red lights that look like eyes. They're spaced just enough to be like eyes.
Okay. Yeah.
And we both see it, and we're like, you see that, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to meet whatever that is. Do you? No.
You're like, no. Right.
We took a few steps, and we're like, it's still there. And I go, well, here's a path to the right. Let's veer that way. And we're like, okay. So we take the path to the right, and we happen to go right at the entrance to the city. So I'm like, let's go back. We're good. Let's go back. And we're walking, and I have no memory of seeing the fireworm. So I'm guessing it disappeared. But the next day, we go to Pouvet, which is this castle that's connected to the Cathars. And on this big board, as you walk in, is a sign that says, Legend of the Woman in White. If you see a woman in white, you are marked for death.
What?
I freak out.
Oh, no.
And for 6 years, I never told anybody I had seen a woman in white.
That's not a good thing. Oh.
I kept
So
it
you
quiet.
were like looking at your watch and your calendar going, wait, how much time do I have, right?
Actually, what was going through my mind was, I can't tell anybody this because the people I would trust to tell would put themselves in harm's way to try and save me. And if I'm going to die, I don't want to take them with me.
Right? Yeah.
Even though, I'm robbing them of the choice to do what they want to do. I'm like, no, I can't have that on my conscience. So I'm like,
it's funny, like as soon as you said that, I don't know if my cat meowed or was that your cat or
I have 2 dogs, so definitely not my dogs.
No?
But I kept quiet about it, thinking, if I talk about it, am I gonna make it happen? I'm just gonna live on borrowed time and just wait. And finally, after 6 years, I get a call from my friend who was hosting the trip to France, and we were talking about something, and I said, oh, by the way, remember the trip to France? And I said, yeah. Remember how we were going up to Rennes-le-Chateau that second time? And she goes, yeah. What did you do? And I go, well, I saw a lady in white. And then remember Pouvet, how they talked about the woman in white? And she's like, why are you telling me now? Why didn't you tell me then? And I said,
right, yeah.
They put you in harm's way. And she's like, Michael, you should have told us. We could have put your mind at ease. We could have looked into it, done stuff to, protect and everything.
Right.
And I was like, that's okay. So yeah, it's funny how,
funny how things work.
The fear of my leg made me forget what I can do in Spain, and the fear of being marked for death led me to keep it hidden for 6 years under the guise of I was so afraid that it could become real because I mentioned it, that I was like, yeah, I was like, no way. I'm not sharing this. I'm not putting anyone in harm's way. So, yeah, I let the fear control me, and there was nothing to it.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to be walking into when you go to different places. And I'm sure your other host, Cal, right?
Right.
That she's probably been through some weird stuff too, I guess.
Oh, she has. She has stories to share. And yeah, she used to, well, I won't share her story because it's her story to share, but yeah, we complement each other very well on the show, and we have equal footing. And real quick, you had mentioned the articles, and the reason I did those articles was there was an online newsletter, and a friend was running it, and she asked me if I would be willing to publish articles. And so I thought, why not? So I did one on myself, one on paranormal, and kind of explaining what it is for people who may not be familiar with it. And they're actually kind of lengthy, and I put them on the website because, I did share them, and, it's, if you want to read them, you can, they're there. And I also noticed, as with a lot of things, there are holidays that we all take for granted that we don't really know anything about. And so I started doing like holiday, like Halloween, Thanksgiving. I did Christmas, and I think I did New Year's. And then they stopped doing the newsletter. And so I was given like origins of where the traditions and where this holiday came from as a way to kind of preserve the history of it. And
Yeah, your episode is coming out March 25th, which is kind of close to Easter. And I know, it's a lot of biblical things with that. But I mean, the Bible in itself is pretty supernatural and metaphysical too, shall we say.
So yeah, so if ever I get an opportunity, I might start that up again and start publishing some more just on the website. And
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. And you mentioned before that you're also a Reiki Master. Do you do any special speaking or different things with that?
actually, I only use it now primarily if I'm at a location and someone has feels like they have an attachment, or something happened, that I will use it there to kind of diffuse and help release or help clear what's going on. And if I injure something, like if I pull a muscle doing something, I'll Reiki to put it back into motion to where I can use it. And so I don't really do it per se with clientele anymore. I kind of more do it now as a time if I need to do it for someone. And being an ordained minister too is, sometimes people will say, well, I need holy water to do this, and I'm like, you really don't. And they're like, no, I do. So I'll
Tell
go
us a
on
little
the
bit
spot and
about.
infuse water with energy and go, here's some holy water, it's been blessed, I'm ordained, here you go. And they'll be like, oh my god, that's so helped me. And I'm like, cool, glad I could help. And
I
it's
mean,
like,
that must be definitely beneficial for the different people who were on your paranormal investigation team. And I'm sure you see when you go on investigations from a different perspective being an ordained minister.
well, I got ordained so I could do the Reiki and keep from getting legally, affected. So I never really was attached to a church. So I've been raised in metaphysics, so I don't have the dogma. And so I've done really well at keeping myself from being attached to dogma. And I'm looking at the screen, and that's my link tree, which has some new things added since I was on last time.
Yeah, you've got
And
a lot of stuff on here.
I have a website now that I
It was,
use.
I had a few things up there from the website, and you've got the IMDb, and you've
Right.
got the.
And
Mhm.
funny story about the IMDb page is I did an interview with someone and they said, oh, and when it was done, they said, by the way, you're going to be on IMDb. And I was like, really? I thought you had to be in movies
Right?
or part of TV shows to be on there. They're like, no, you're, you can put your podcast shows on there now. And so I now list all my podcast shows on there, as well as if I have I found another interview I was on IMDb, so I have them tagged to my page, so you can see everything that I've been involved in that's on there centrally through my page, which was a lot of fun. And it's got my show's YouTube channels, my YouTube channel. It's got my Rumble channel, the show's Rumble channels, the eTalk channel pages of networks that are not on Facebook. And I pretty much didn't put Facebook on there because Facebook was taken away. And so that's why I created the website. So it's my way of when doing shows, if I was to lose Facebook, people can go to the website and see, oh, is he still doing shows? Because I update when seasons start or when if something's going on, I'll put it there. And
That's a
I
great idea. Yeah, not a lot of podcasters use the IMDb.
right, and on the website too. Now, what I started last year is I have a page that says appearances for the year. And when I go on an investigation or I go on, for example, like this show, it will not only list I was on this show, but it'll have a link to your site so people can go check out your stuff, a link where I have it posted so they can go check it out there. And it's my way of being like so grateful for the opportunity that I'm like, hey, people who are checking out my page, and if they're interested in the episode, we'll go check out your stuff as well. So it's like spreading the word about you as well, promoting your side.
Yeah, I was actually going to show that up there also as you were talking about it. I'll share that screen there that you were talking about, where you can see on your web page all the appearances of where you're going to be. So here are some of the ones that you were in 2025, and you can see all the links. Fun. That's a great idea to do that, to link it in. And some people do that with their tree. They have all that stuff on their link tree too.
Right. And I have the about me and the about the shows. So that's where I update it as necessary when things are updated. And actually, now that I say that, I probably need to go look to see if I did update it for season 3 or I just jumped in and kind of forgot to do that part.
Well, Michael, do you want to give a shout out? We got about a minute left there to your fans who are listening, and other folks who don't know where to find you, where they can find you.
So if you want to find me, the best way is through the link tree, or I am on Facebook under Michael Kopf. And you also want to give a shout out to my friends. Hey Bailey, hey Kel, hey Nova, hey Val, to Erica and Christy and Brian, and One quick
Hello
shout
to
out
all the
is
fans. We got 30 seconds left. Got to give a station ID. You're listening in to UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM in Gulf Coast. And you're listening to Michael Kopf. And Michael, give another shout out to your fans.
Okay, I'm going to give a shout out to in
5
July.
seconds.
I will be speaking at a Full Disclosure Now conference. So
Follow Michael then. Thanks for being on the show, folks.